Hey there, my name is Chuck Black and welcome to my studio. Today we're going to be wrapping up this larger painting here, and I know I showed you in a couple other videos about how I did the trees and then also the cabin. Well, today I'm going to show you how I wrap up the finer details. We're going to work on the foreground, which is this black bear. I know it looks like a big black blob right now, but it's going to transform into a beautiful bear along with some cubs. And then I'll show you how I do the grass and the log. So stick with us, it's going to be a lot of fun. And of course, I give away a free hand-signed art print every week to one of my email subscribers. And all you have to do to sign up to win is click this card right here for more information. All right, let's get started on our painting. Okay, so let me just bring you up to speed with what I have going here within this painting. I'm very happy with the background, the cabin. I've been working a lot on these trees up here. I'm really happy with most of it. And I may make some more adjustments, but right now I'm worried about finishing this area down here before I really look at whether I need to adjust or make any adjustments to other parts. So I'm focused on this bear right now. And the reason I have these big black blobs is because I add them in here. And if you watch my previous videos, you've seen I added these bears, these ideas of bears being here at the beginning of this painting so that I could just maintain that visualization of that the bears will be here. And it just helps me with other parts, knowing that the bear's here. If I add something over here, how's that going to look in relation to the bears? So that's why I started these big black blobs early on. Well, now we need to refine them. And I took a little bit of pencil, just some graphite pencil, and I think charcoal might work better over the top of paints. And I've sketched out a little more refined idea of this bear. So the first thing I'm going to do is take some paint here, and I have golden fluid acrylics, and I've got carbon black, titanium white, raw sienna, and this one is cadmium red. And so what I'm going to do is just take some black, and I'm going to get some water. I've just got a liner brush, and we're going to be doing most of this bear with the liner brush. And let's get this outline. Let's get this outline a little more defined. You'll notice I'm basically, it's kind of like a pencil, just kind of sketching with this paintbrush. And before it dries, if I don't like something, it's gone. But another cool thing about why I like these acrylic paints, I'm going to grab some white here, and I'm also going to start thinking about like what, there's going to be some highlights inside of our bear. So I'm going to just get that down in white. So I made a small indication of where that eye is going to be. So I want to get that in there. I don't want to lose my work. So I'll go around the outside of this ear with white. And let's see, put some white through there. That'll be kind of like the belly coming down. And oop, I dropped my brush. Well, that happens every once in a while. All right, so okay, I'm gonna get some gray here. We're almost done. All right, I'm gonna wash my brush. And what I was saying before, the cool thing about this acrylic paint is you can always paint over the top. You can get rid of things. So some raw sienna and white. This is not going to be part of the bear, and I had it down before. But I'm going to need to cover it up now, as well as this area right here. I'm just kind of going along the outside of this outline, down in these areas that are already dark. We want to lighten those up so that we know exactly what we're doing. And now you can kind of see the bear. If I take some more black, just finish up this nose. Now you can see our bear. And suddenly, this is really starting to make sense. So, our bear's still not filled in. The first thing I want to do is get black down. Gonna go around that little bit of white. We'll go on the inside of the eye, the ear, sorry. Now with this eyeball here, if I go right over the top, I've got quite a bit of water in this paint, keep in mind. I'm just dabbing some of that away. Now we'll see how that eye just pops right back out, because that white is really hard to cover when you've got some water mixed in the paint. And of course, let's get our nose established. It's really hard to cover white paint, so I like to lay down some of these areas, and you'll even see it with this gray. And I think this gray is just about dry. As I go over the top, and then I'm going to start spreading it around with my finger. I can still see some of that gray, and it may be hard for you to see it quite as well. You can probably see that one pretty well, but I can still kind of pick out the idea of where these things are. So that's going to help me later on when I'm adding the hair detail. But right now, this is allowing me, because of that, to kind of speed things up and just coat it all in a good, solid layer of black without losing that stuff. And what I need to do now is let this dry. This is a base coat. Let it dry, and we'll come back to it. Okay, so now that this is good and dry, the next thing that I want to do is mix some lighter gray. We want to get some of these values or tones just a little bit lighter. I want them to be a little more accurate. So this is essentially blocking in these colors. And I'm not afraid to put a little more gray than maybe what I want the finished result to be. Just want to get this as close as possible. I'm keeping the brush moving in the same direction as the fur. So I'm kind of being conscious of where I am on the bear, what direction that fur is going to be flowing in. I just want to keep that same direction consistent. And we're going to have light reflecting off of this bear. over his face, her face, I should say. I'm going to go around that eye. I'm going to try to leave some of the blacks. This will all start to make sense. It'll all start to make sense once I kind of leave some of these dark areas present. You'll start to see the shape of the head a lot better. And come down somewhere around. I'm going to rub away some of that black. I want to come down somewhere in front of the eye with this gray. Just kind of scrubbing in this color. I want it to be fairly subtle. I'll wash my brush, and I'm going to pick up some red and raw sienna, a little bit of black, kind of a brown color. I'm going to go a little bit closer to the eye with this color. Cover up some of that black. Around the lip here, kind of flows down. And we might have a little bit of brown in the ear. Okay. I'm going to pick up some more gray. I'm going to grab an older brush. This one's really frayed. That's good for scrubbing in this color. We won't wreck our new one quite as fast. Just kind of maintaining that direction of the hair, like I said. The cool thing about hair is that you can run a brush through it and change the sheen, change the reflection almost any way. So you never have to be too concerned about the hair. As long as it's close, it will be correct. So I'm just kind of imagining what some of these areas. I have a good idea, understanding of where I want these highlights in the fur and what I want them to look like exactly, but there's a lot of room for play, so never have to be too critical on this. Just get it on there. A little bit there, a little bit there. A little more down here. Might take away a little bit before it dries through there. Okay, now as I finish up, this is super simple throughout this entire bear. You're just scrubbing on this color, and you see me just kind of go bounce around to all these different areas. Well, now we're just adding a little more white to the mixture. And we're adding some brighter highlights. So these highlights are now going to have basically two tones, even the nose. That'll just set off that sunlight a little bit more. All right. And let's adjust our eye just a little bit. We're going to take just some pure black and go right in the middle. Let's draw our pupil out. And let's cover up a little bit of that ring around it up top. Let's leave the ring down below, because as that light is flowing down, it's going to reflect off the bottom of its eyelid. Okay, so that looks fairly well. I'm going to take some darker black, just fill in a few of these areas with just some richer black, some darker black. Just scrubbing that color in. And I'm not going right up to these gray highlights we put in. I'm going to leave a little bit in between. And so that's all of a sudden going to make two tones between our black. We have a dark black, a medium black, and then a gray. And that's just going to make that flow, those blends, just a little bit nicer. It's going to make them smoother. Has a better appearance to them. Okay, so now that that is done, I'm going to get rid of this old dingy brush, and I'm going to switch back to our brush that's got a little more of a point to it. And we need to just take some black, mix some water. You can see quite a bit of water in there, just enough to leave a mark. And we're going to start a very tedious process of pixelating a lot of these gray areas. We're going to break them up in just tiny, teeny tiny little baby strokes. We're going to add the texture in this hair. Just like that. And this will also start the process of just refining some areas I know I'm not happy with. And so we're going to have to maybe re-darken them, and then maybe even re-lighten them. Just kind of bounce back and forth till we're happy. So this is almost, I've got enough water on the paintbrush. It's almost like drawing. I think of it a lot like drawing. You're just using a very thin brush, just sketching on some color. And we can get more refined. We've got another brush. And this brush, there's a lot of different companies that make these brushes. You might be able to see that, but a lot of tiny little, the brush is kind of broken up. It's a flat brush, but it's all chopped up. So we have tons of little lines that will kind of automatically form for us. I'll dip it in some black paint. It's hard to see that, but it's putting on these little tiny lines. And sometimes I like using that brush. There, you can see that just a little better. Just kind of automatically. And so I might use this brush, maybe when I finish, just add a couple touches. But a liner brush works too. Sometimes with the liner brush you can be a little more precise in the handling. So there's an advantage. You can find advantages in both. Some of it might be preference. However, you can break this up with a bunch of little lines. And you have to try a lot of different methods sometimes. Experiment. Just a little bit of gray. So that's very transparent black, but that works for us. So you might be able to see the realism start to pop out in this fur. And it really is just a little simple adjustment. Breaking up all these grays can take something that looks maybe like it was poorly done, quickly done, which it was. We didn't spend much time adding those grays at all. And it just takes it to a whole new level. Very easy. Now scrub some of that black in. You can get creative. Just because a hair is just a line doesn't mean you have to make a million little lines. It's all just little textures, and we're far away from this bear. So we're not going to see every individual hair. Anywhere that looks like it needs to be broken up a little bit. That's just kind of what I'm keying in on. Don't be afraid to break it up too much. You can't break it up too much because you can always add gray lines back over the top. And in most cases when you do that, you're going to make it better and more realistic anyways. So it's not worth the hassle. It's not much of a hassle. The face here is going to be a little more pixelated, shorter strokes. Just trying to dot in these areas. Just barely scraping the canvas, trying to add a little bit of texture. I'm trying to be careful where I put this texture as well. So I go slow, I take pauses, I think about it. That's looking much better. Sometimes I just scrub my brush over an area just to see if the canvas, if the texture might pick up a little bit for me. Just do it automatically. Sometimes when I do that, it has no effect at all. But by doing that, it allows me to work very slow. Get it right the first time. That's very important. experimenting. I'm changing up how I'm applying this brush, usually at all times. Just, it depends how much paint you laid down on the canvas, depends on your subject, depends on the lighting. It varies with every painting. So I just experiment, just different ways. Maybe I'll try scrubbing it this way. Maybe I'll move it this way. Maybe I'll try just using the tip of the brush. I'll try all different types and experiment. And that really allows you to get it right. But you do have to experiment. But over time, you become comfortable. You begin to recognize when you're going to have to use a certain technique, and things just go much faster as you practice more. All right, now I know you can see how this bear is starting to make sense. Starting to look a little more lively. Just look at it compared to our cub here. How quick you can transform it. And it's not complicated, there's no secret. It's just a lot of small detailed work. Now what I can do is I can go back to some white, get some of that gray back on there. Now I'm going to start going back over the top. Maybe I darkened some areas a little bit too much. I'm going to slowly make the corrections, I guess, the opposite way. So we're just going to cruise around this bear, pixelating these details. Then it'll really start to shine. Okay, so now we're going to take black, same consistency, pretty watered down. We're going to go back over the entire bear again with black, but this time we're getting way more controlled. We're getting very detailed. We're only using the tip of the paintbrush. Very, very tiny adjustments. And we're going to make these micro adjustments all over the bear, again in reverse. And hopefully, at that point, we'll be very close to having a finished bear. And we may do some more micro adjustments with the gray and to these highlights, but it won't have to be a lot. So I'm going to go over this entire bear just like this, a little bit at a time. Okay, so this is looking quite a bit better, but we're still not there yet. Like I said, I want to go back over the top with some gray again. And I want a gray that's maybe in between these two colors, maybe in between black and the gray that we already have. That might be about right. That's just going to help soften things up. We've got a lot of hard edges between that gray and that black. So if we can hit that in-between tone, maybe even tone back some of these grays that are already down, we're going to make things look even better. So begins the process of just kind of going back over the top. And I'll try to go back over just about every spot, really adding very, very tiny, fine hair detail at this point. Alright, so now I've switched to a little bit lighter. This is not quite white, but it's much brighter. You can see it going on. Wipe some of that away, and this is going to create that sunlight effect. That you can actually feel the light hitting that bear. You can take a little bit of that color. You can put some right in the eye. I might adjust that a little bit, but I'm going to let it dry. The shape is about right there. Sounds like the train's coming through. All right. Giving him a little eyebrow. So this is really the final touches of just increasing that contrast, making certain things stand out. And I may poke at this more, but again, it's one of those things where you get it to a certain point, just like the rest of the painting. Once I finish the rest, I might see things differently that I don't see now, and I might want to fix things a little bit differently. But right now, that bear is really starting to become close to finished. And it might not be there, but it's close. What I'm going to start to do now, I want to work the area around this bear. And I will cover how to do some of this foliage more in a more detailed manner in maybe a future video. So I'm going to speed this part up. And I'm going to work on the rest of this foreground because I want to show you guys how I put together a foreground like this. And we're using the same process that I'm doing right now. It's just going to take a while because I want it to be very detailed. Much more detailed than what's back here, because the closer we get, the more detail we can see. And so this is going to take at least 3 to 4 hours of painting to get this area wrapped up through here. But I think you'll be able to see or understand a lot of it just by watching me do this. I'm just going to slowly build these textures, and then once I build these textures up, the foreground is going to have some more detailed textures, shapes, even grasses. We can start laying in grasses with a liner brush. See how easy it is just to lay pieces of grass. So we'll start doing that. And we'll also want to work on some of these reds. I want to be adding some more of these bushes that have some of these leaves. And I might do a couple different colored bushes. And I'll lay down some leaves. And I want to add some shadows in between those leaves. So I've got some black. We'll start to break up some of those leaves. You'll see me do that. So you see me just go back and forth like I do on most of my subjects, from the highlights to the shadows. Back to the highlights, then back to the shadows again. And I'll just keep poking at it. And over time, you'll see things just develop into exceptional detail. And then when I'm finished, I'll slow it down as I begin to wrap up everything. We'll talk about it a little bit more. I hope you enjoyed this glimpse into this slightly larger, much more detailed painting that I've gone over in the past. Right now, I'm pretty much happy with the whole painting overall. I might be adding a few more details. You saw me start a bird up here, and just things like that that I'll poke on over the next few days. But the foreground, the part that we covered in this video, I'm pretty much almost there. I'm almost happy with it. You saw me just take that liner brush and I built all these colors up, starting from the darks first, adding those dark reds, those dark yellows, and then I finished by lightening that with a lot of white, a lot of yellow. I added those highlights to all those little leaves, even added some sticks and some branches, just using a liner brush, mixing that paint with water, and just remaining patient with it. But the process is the same, and of course, if you had questions, especially about the part that I sped up, I read them all. I'm happy to answer. So until next time, happy painting, everybody. Remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel. We have many more great videos to come, and be sure to check out my website and my eBay auctions. We'll see you next time.